welcome back to some more Napoleon Total War. So today we are on Waterloo. This is actually going to be a 3v3. So Bullet sent me in this replay. He's going to be in command of the French, and same with his allies. So not historically accurate. Historically they were attacking on Waterloo, but in this case they're going to be defending. Now some interesting rules for the French. They're going to be facing the Russians, and their one rule is that they can only bring regular artillery, so only one piece of artillery per player, and then max 3 light infantry. So already starting the engagement, it is definitely a rainy day on Waterloo. Now for the Russians though, since they are attacking, they're going to be able to bring some 10-pound unicorns. Now this is going to be a huge deciding factor on who will win this engagement, but the Russians are going to be assaulting this hill, and they have a lot of men, a lot of columns of troops, and a lot of cavalry. So Bullet's going to be forming up his lines, sending troops where they need to go. He has a ton of reserves here in the back, and he's going to deploy them when necessary. But bad news will soon hit Bullet and his allies, and that is because one of his teammates is going to leave the battle. So usually I don't post AI, but in this case it was just too epic not to. So artillery engagement has begun, and here comes a cavalry charge by the Russians. Not too sure where he's trying to charge, and probably not the best of ideas to be charging right now, but we will see where he is off to. So this is going to be the leading force for the Russian army, and they are definitely committed. Now he needs to be careful of any artillery, because they will devastate Russian cavalry. So it looks like none of the French artillery is targeting them, but we will see if they will shortly. But here they go. 3 units of Uhlans charging through the forest. Now it's going to actually slow them down and allow the French artillery. It looks like they are changing targets here. So let's see the devastating effect it has on these Uhlans. Oh man, what a good shot. Fantastic shot by the French artillery. And now the light infantry is engaging. These Uhlans are getting absolutely slaughtered as they run into combat, but still able to make it to French lines, and now running into stakes. So everything you do not want to be doing with cavalry, they are doing. And just like that, Russian cavalry absolutely slaughtered, and they are retreating from the battlefield. So just like that, 3 Russian Uhlan units are broken and gone. So great job here by the French players, targeting with their artillery. And you can just tell how upgraded these guys truly are. So not a smart move at all for the Russians. But with that, they're going to continue to push up. Unicorns now getting into position, and soon they will be unleashing hell on French positions. Once again, more French artillery targeting the Russian cavalry and losing a lot of guys. So even though they're just regular artillery pieces, they can do a lot of damage to the Russians. And now the Russian artillery is starting to engage. Just horrible news for the Russians though. I mean, just devastating what those guys can do. Got some more hussars here. Don't really see these guys in combat often. Got a really cool looking uniform, very sharp. But now the Russian 10-pound unicorns are engaging. They're actually targeting the French artillery. They want these guys off the battlefield, and we will see if they're successful in doing so. They are below a hill, so that means the French artillery is unable to reach them. But they're going to shoot at anything they can, but this hill is really saving the Russian army right now, just ricocheting off the hill and going above the heads of these guys. But as for the Russians on this flank, we got some Jaegers here. They are in the open. It's going to allow these French artillery pieces to engage there and actually, kill some people. But we're going to fast forward for now, seeing that it's just a stalemate between artillery pieces. And it looks like he's going to be filling in the gap with some young guards. So pulling back from the main lines, probably a smart idea, seeing that the Russian artillery is just blasting their positions. But not too sure what will happen here. Another good volley, getting a direct hit. Killing 4 guys. Not good. So, Bullet pushing up his voltigeurs now. He's going to be reforming. You see he has a lot of stakes here, and that's going to prevent any cavalry charges from happening. And they laid stakes pretty much everywhere on the battlefield, so cavalry for the Russians are going to have a very hard time. Pretty much the only place they can get through is right through this gap here. And that is a choke point. So great job there by the French players, thinking it out and trying to limit where this cavalry can go, because the Russians do have a lot of cavalry, surprisingly. I mean, just taking a look at the reserve numbers, ton of cav. This artillery is just devastating the French right now. Absolute devastation all around. And continual bombardment. So right now, just a stalemate between artillery. And at this point in time, the French player has left the game. So he was the central fighting force in the battle. And this is very bad news for Bullets and his other ally, because it is basically a 2v1. So Bullet's now going to have to rethink his idea on defending this hill. He knows the AI is just going to push out and get slaughtered, so he's going to probably push up with them and bring the battle to the Russians, which are not willing to attack whatsoever. They're just having a really good time right now, forming fancy positions and just staring each other down in an epic way. You know, doing the Russian thing. So here comes the French now. AI pushing up their Shashaval and actually limbering off their artillery. So Bullet starts to notice this, so he's going to be pushing up his troops as well very shortly. And same with his ally. But the battle is just about to get underway. Losing a couple more guys here. Unicorns just being devastating. Actually taking out a couple of the old guard, or young guard, excuse me. But the Russians are definitely very happy about this. But the battle must continue. So we're going to fast forward once again. AI still forming up its troops to push out. But this artillery is just devastating French positions right now. But here goes the AI pushing across the battlefield now, just marching in style, all alone. So Bullet still has a ton of reserves here, still not willing to push them up. He's gonna see what the AI will do, and his ally is also going to be pushing up. The Russians, though, still behind the ridge, just waiting for the French to come. We have a general staff unit running across the battlefield, trying to keep the morale high for his men. But this is pretty much a death march right now. These 10-pound unicorns, as the French troops get closer, their accuracy does increase. And now Bullet is going to be pushing up his army, so he does not want the AI to get slaughtered all alone, so he's going to be pushing up. And here he goes. So, French attack now commencing. They're not going to be defending the hill. It's going to be somewhat of a counterattack. But here goes the AI. We have some Russian cavalry now engaging Shashaval. Mounted rifles, artillery engaging as well. Numbers pretty high for both sides. And they are both in green, so pretty hard to tell who is who. But it looks like the French cavalry is actually winning this engagement. Spoke too soon there, but they do have an extra chevron, and that will help quite a bit. But here goes the Russian lines now pushing up, and they do have a slight hill advantage here. Pushing up with the Russian Jaegers for the front lines. And the AI is about to get a face full of lead right now. And there goes the first volley straight into the young guard, bringing them down to 106 men. They are going to counter, though, with some voltigeurs. And the AI not looking too bad right now, forming some decent lines and actually helping out in terms of the cavalry engagement. And the Russians did lose that cav engagement, so the French did beat them there in a 2v1, not bad at all. But now Fusilier is going to be engaging the 17th Jaeger Regiment. And it is a rainy day, so volleys will be misfired. And that is going to lead to a lot of melee combat if they do play their cards correctly. So Shashaval trying to get in on more of the action, actually charging into the Russian Jaegers and still not breaking with 11 guys. So holding pretty strong, but there are Lifeguard foot behind them, and they are going to shatter the Shashaval, so not making it far at all. But AI now pushing up very close, and Bullet's going to be controlling the left flank right now. He's going to try and overwhelm with his elite troops that he has. He's got some Old Guard, Polish Legion, and some more Old Guard. So the engagement is getting very close, and AI doing things best and just making things very messy. I mean, no organization, just random movements, but it seems to be working in their favor right now. They are making some decent battle lines, and they're actually pushing back the Russians quite a bit right now. So great job there by the AI, and more French troops are being pushed up. On the right flank, the French player is in control, and he's going to be holding this flank and hopefully trying to get around the Russian positions. But here goes Bullet. Artillery all over the place right now. Morale still very strong with the elite troops being nearby. Now the Voltigeurs are going to get a part of the action. Look at this. Fusilier is just doing a lot of damage right now. Here comes some Cossacks. They're running over their own men and charging into the Fusiliers. Officer actually killing someone with his pistol. Not bad at all. And here goes the Young Guard now charging in. Big melee clash. Something you never want to do against Russians, but in this case, I guess it is acceptable. We have Russian militia up against Old Guard. That is not good. But behind that, we have some Moscow Musketeers. And here goes the Hussars charging in. Once again, running over their own men. Now the attack on the far left flank is starting. Looks like some Russian cavalry charging in, but Old Guard were able to form square. And we do have some French cavalry here, the 5E. They are very depleted. But you see Bullet's doing a fantastic job on flanking around the Russian positions. Center is not holding too well. They did amass a lot of units here in the center. But the morale is still fairly strong, seeing that the Old Guard are with them. As for the right flank, things are getting pretty heated as well. Another cavalry engagement, this time Shashaval engaging with the Hussars. Looks like the Russian cavalry is starting to lose out, seeing that there is some light infantry engaging them. But in the center right now, things are not looking good. Russians holding back the French and causing a lot of damage. So only strong spot in the center right now is this melee clash. And with that melee clash, there's going to be a lot of Russian troops are going to be able to shoot the French as they do engage. But as for Bullets, really flanking around right now and getting wide as possible. You see Semenovsky Lifeguard now being pushed up to the far left flank. But the Old Guard not doing a bad job at all, breaking a lot of the morale for the Musketeers. You can see it starts to waver back and forth between green and orange. But in the center, the Russians are holding very strong now. Morale for the French is getting very low, and things are not looking good. So Bullet is going to have a lot on his shoulders. He's going to have to really carry his team in order to lead to victory. But now the Old Guard, we will see what they are capable of right now. Fusiliers running right by the Lifeguards. And he's going to once again try and outflank the enemy as best as possible. And it's going to cost him a lot of men doing so, because as he runs across the fields, he's going to get shot at a very close distance. So here goes the Old Guard now filling in the gap and actually walking into combat. They are extremely confident right now in their tactics. So they are just going to walk into position with style. French artillery trying their best to do as much damage, but with the engagement on the other side of the hill, most of those volleys will not be able to hit their intended targets. And once again, Bullet forming square at the appropriate time and forcing these Hussars in a bad position. Now the Old Guard engaging Semenovsky Lifeguard. Both numbers pretty equal, 60 against, actually 59 against 95, and that number is dropping significantly right now. So the Old Guard are starting to lose out, but the Polish Legion is there, They're going to try and help out as best as possible, actually shooting horses as they run across the field. So inhumane. But it is war, and you gotta do what you gotta do, so I guess it is acceptable. Fusiliers, though, doing a pretty good job on the flank, and they too are flanking around. Musketeers up against Fusiliers. Friendly cavalry charge, killing their own men again, but making it into the Musketeers. So things are too even to call what is happening. But the Russians are winning on this left flank right now, breaking the Old Guard. That's going to shatter the morale for the rest of the units around them. So the Fusiliers pretty isolated and engaging an elite Russian unit. Things are not going to be looking too great for them. So Bullet's morale and men are starting to dwindle down, so he's going to be pushing up his reserves now. And once again, pushing up some more Old Guard into the mix. And hopefully this extra regiment or section of reserves will hopefully win out and beat back this Russian flank. But by the looks of it, it is pretty much a 2v3, but it seems to be a 2v2 just by how the French are acting and responding to these Russians. So over here, Musketeers up against Fusiliers. The Musketeers do hold the hill advantage, but the Fusiliers do outnumber them. Or actually, no, they're actually even. But morale for the French looking very bad now. They need their general nearby. He is all the way back here behind the hill, acting like a coward right now. So he needs to be with his men because they are suffering quite a bit right now. But the reserves are now in combat, and they're going to be flanking the Russians. The Slave Guard foot in some trouble right now. But so is Bullet's men. They got charged into by some Hussars. And once again, Russians able to hold the flank. So Bullet's going to be reformed and rethink on what he needs to do to try and overwhelm the Russian positions. But as for the right flank, things seem to be a little bit slow here. No one is able to get the edge over one another because they keep trying to outflank each other. And I would have to say these Young Guard are going to heavily influence this flank right now because there are some elite troops being pushed up, but because they are outnumbered on the flank, it's not going to do too much. The 10-pound unicorns doing what they do best and continually bombarding the French positions. So Old Guard did come back to the battle. That's going to be a huge importance to Bullet. Because it's going to keep the morale up by quite a bit. But now he's going to reform, like I said, and allow his ally on the far right flank to keep up the engagement. But look at this flanking force right here. Voltigeur is getting an excellent position on the Musketeers, and pretty much every shot they fire is going to hit a target just because of how they are angled. And the Semenovsky Life Guard actually shooting their own men in the back. The Russians just loving to kill their own guys. But now with the flank exposed for the Russians, they're actually going to be forced to fall back. You see the 10-pound unicorns running back to safer positions here. So definitely the French player on the right flank causing a lot of devastation and just breaking through these Russian lines. Engagement here. We got some Moscow Musketeers engaging some Fusiliers and Young Guard. Not to mention, once again, some more Voltigeurs getting some excellent flanking fire in. You see the balance of power is actually favoring the French right now. We will see if that stays true throughout the battle. But big push here by the Russians. They do hold a slight hill advantage, and they want to get in range of the French. So here they come running down the hill. Bullet is prepared though, farming his guys up and are ready for these Russians as they push down the hill. So Polish Legion in a 2v1 right now up against Musketeers, but with only 33 men, their morale is going to dwindle down. They do get some return volleys in. The morale is still very strong, but look at this. Old Guard leading the way. And they're going to be at the front lines, but big push here Looks like this player is out of ammunition. He's actually going to be chasing down the 10-pound unicorns, but he's going to get countered by some lifeguard foot. That is not going to be a good engagement at all for the French. But once again, forcing these Russians back. In the center, another melee engagement. We got some Old Guard up against Russian Jaegers. And once again, another cavalry charge. This time by the Hussars. Bullets forming square. Very consistent with what he does. And the Hussars now are going to be taking a beating by the Fusiliers and Swissfoot. French artillery now actually being able to be effective. You can see them on this hill. They have a perfect visual over the French and Russian positions, despite the smoke being in the way. So right now, the player on the far right flank is starting to lose a lot of men, and their morale is still high. He does control some pretty healthy units, but for the most part, he is very depleted. But he's going to continue the push. And the Russians now starting to lose the center. Looks like these Young Guard are able to hold. But this engagement on the far left flank is going to determine who will win this engagement. And as of right now, the Russians look very strong, but so do the French with their Old Guard. But we will have to see. This right flank is also going to determine the game. Voltigeurs once again getting some excellent flanking positions. They definitely know how to move around to enemy positions and just flank the hell out of them. So great job there by the Voltigeurs. And he's actually going to be pushing up even closer to Russian positions here. As for on the flank, getting low on men, they're actually going to be using their own Chasseurs Chacheval to shoot from horseback and hopefully deplete some of these musketeers. But the Russians are going to have none of it. We have some Hussars now charging in to the Chasseurs Chacheval. And once again, another cavalry engagement. Melee charge here by the Voltigeurs, out of ammo and charging into the Lifeguard foot. They should have targeted the 10-pound unicorns. That would have been a much better decision. But instead, they did target the Lifeguard foot. And another cavalry charge. Uhlans now charging in. Fusiliers unable to form square. As for on the left flank, the engagement is very heated in the center at least. More flanking fire. And they're going to be engaging the Semenovsky Lifeguards. So a lot of elite Russian troops on this battlefield here. Looks like the French player is going to flank around the cavalry. So he's going to leave one Chasseurs Chacheval in melee combat against these Hussars. Meanwhile, he's going to try and get some flanking fire on the Russians. So excellent move here. Voltigeurs did break. That was expected. And now the Lifeguard afoot on a mission to get into melee combat is actually going to be charging in, it seems, to these Fusiliers. Fusiliers look like they're out of ammunition right now. But we will see where these guys are headed to. Are they out of ammo is the question. No, they are not, but unable to reload, not able to get a good volley in. And now it is really heated on the left flank. But very even right now. Too close to call. We have a melee engagement here. Semenovsky Lifeguard up against some Fusiliers. They are backed by some Guard Seamen, an elite unit for the French. But it looks like the Russians are winning out right now. Bullet is not able to hold his ground. And just walking into position, not a smart idea. And here goes the classic Russian charge. Doing what they do best. But the French are going to try and down as many troops as they can before they do get into melee engagement. But over here, French cavalry breaking through, actually getting to the artillery here. But they're going to be countered by some more Lifeguard foot. Numbers for the Chasseurs Chacheval are very low. And they did win this engagement. So the Russians looking very sharp right now. And with the French very low on numbers, it's going to be iffy on who is going to win this battle. So melee engagement here, Fusiliers up against the Semenovsky. We have the general himself charging in, trying to keep the morale up. But these Russians just doing a lot of devastation and just breaking these French units one by one. and pretty much down to only 2 units now of line infantry, 4 bullets. So getting very low on men, and he's pretty much only down to his artillery piece. Other than that, he is out of this battle, so he's got to rely on his ally right now. And he too doing some damage, actually breaking a lot of the artillery. Actually, all of the artillery, so there is no more 10-pound unicorns. But he does have a very healthy old guard unit, and these guys are going to be very important on the right flank. Fusiliers still holding on, definitely outnumbered. The old guard doing their best on depleting as many troops as possible. Life guards do break the Fusiliers, but they're going to be faced with some young guards. So very small engagement here, 26 up against 29. Russians on the run right now. And they do end up breaking. So the right flank goes to the French while the left goes to the Russians. We have a charge here by the Semenovsky, and they're going to be targeting this French artillery bullet test. So we will see if bullet can form canister or fire canister. But he is destined to take out the French artillery. Here he comes. Knocking over some guys. He's definitely within canister range now. So hopefully he switches to that. And he actually broke one of the units, so just down to the Semenovsky lifeguards. Will they make it to French positions? Shooting canister now. Breaking through the stakes. Will he make it? These guys are tired, so it's going to take them even longer. Enemy general is dead. But will he make it? Is the question. Missing that volley. Oh, this is going to be too close to call. There we go. Getting some really good shots in. He needs one more canister to finish off this Russian unit. And this will be the artillery piece. Face full of lead. Will they make it though? They're continuing the charge. And they actually won't. So, getting extremely close, but actually breaking. So, phenomenal job by Bullets. Using canister and being effective in breaking that unit. So now it is pretty much down, like I said, to this right flank. And this is way too close to call. The French do have artillery over the Russians, which they lost a bit ago. But they're going to be reforming. And let's take a look at where the general died. So, looks like the Young Guards did engage the general here. And they were able to take him out, so morale for the Russians will be depleted quite a bit. And these Russians are definitely open to a lot of French attacks. Bullet actually taking out, or at least trying to take out the general. And the general is not in a good position right now. One good volley of artillery will completely wipe out this unit. So we will see if that is going to be possible. We'll just wait for this next volley. Here it comes. Soaring right by. I just want to stay here. This is too intense. Will it hit? They're just missing. Let's fast forward a little bit. Not too sure what the announcer is saying there. It's definitely too close to call. But this French artillery is just missing right now, despite having an extra chevron. Maybe this volley? Oh, that looks promising. No, it's wide. Anyways, the engagement has begun. Lifeguard afoot against Old Guard. Two extremely elite units here by the French. We also have a lifeguard, Young Guard unit on the flank. But the Russians do outnumber the French in terms of men. But this lifeguard unit is getting heavily slaughtered. I'm just waiting for this artillery to kill this Russian general. It is just taking forever. Looks like he's going to switch targets though, seeing that it is not working out in his favor. Lifeguard foot still holding on, 30 up against 92 men. But the French do hold the high ground. They're going to be staring each other down. Over here, though, Young Guard pushing up on the flank. Russians actually inspiring his men before combat. And here goes the final Russian push. So this is going to be the deciding factor. Will the Russians beat the French is the question. They do outnumber this unit 4-1 right now. But they do hold the hill advantage. Lifeguard foot still holding on with only 11 men. Shows you how good their morale is right now. But now the Old Guard going to be able to shift over and face this Russian force coming at him. And there goes the first musketeer unit. There's still some lifeguard afoot here and some musketeers. And a melee engagement. Charging into the Old Guard, unable to form square with these guys. And actually an artillery volley just ripping through. Will the Russian general die though is the question. Here he is. It's going to be huge if this guy does die. And they're just having an awkward staring competition. But definitely getting swarmed right now. But killing a lot of these French troops. Slashing a lot right now. And there goes the general. So Old Guard able to break the other unit. Now the French general is showing up. And here comes once again a massive Russian melee charge. Countercharged by the Old Guard. Guard seamen are going to be taking the charge. But this is the battle right here. We have another engagement between generals. General staff up against the French general. Things are too close to call. Russians know how to win melee engagements, but the French do have some very elite troops here. But they are low on numbers. 43, 23 up against 72, 66, and 46. The Old Guards, or Young Guards, excuse me, do break. And now it's down to a general's engagement. Let's try to locate where the French general is. And once again, another set of generals are dead. I guess the Russian general did not die. So now, 3 out of the 4 generals are dead. And morale is very bad, so... 5, oh no. The Russian general did win that engagement. And it's all down to the Old Guard, which did break. So 4 units left on the battlefield. But there is still a French artillery piece. And we will see what happens here. So things are too close to call. But the Russians do have a long way to go. And now it's just down to Bullets and his artillery piece to hopefully win this engagement. Now, you have to realize this was pretty much a 2v1, or excuse me, 2v3, pretty much the entire game. And just taking a look at the bodies, this side of the battlefield is a complete mess. But Bullet's going to have a wonderful time right now, shooting these guys from a distance. They're going to be running into combat. Russian general walking behind his men. But we're going to fast forward. Another volley here by the French. They're just going to be walking into the engagement. So great volley here, actually breaking the general staff with that one artillery shot, knocking them off their horses, and they are dead. So down to 3 units. They are marching towards the French positions, so we're going to fast forward for now. It's going to get very important when it comes down to canister. But units, the morale is starting to suffer now. Without a general leading them, morale is going to really suck. And there goes 1 unit. Not looking good for the Russians. 2 units up against 1. They're going to be forming square. This does help the morale of the troops quite a bit. You can see that morale is starting to inch up quite a bit, but there goes another unit. Will this French artillery break the Russians? Morale is definitely getting to these guys. Down to the final unit in square formation, and they do end up breaking. So only 1 artillery piece, 1 unit left on the battlefield. and that was this artillery. So excellent job by everyone on the battlefields. Let's take a look. 1,500 kills for Bullets, excuse me, not Bullets, the other ally on the battlefield for the French. 1,500 kills. AI not doing a great job with only 700 kills, and then Bullets with 1,000. As for the enemy forces, Russian player not doing so great. 600 kills, 1,500 kills, and then 1,500 kills. So not a bad job overall from all the players. Taking a look at the unit statistics, Fusiliers on top, surprisingly, but they lost a lot of guys. A pretty even trade-off of units, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to join my Steam group and my Discord in the description for any future notifications on if I need replays or people for a battle. And that is pretty much it, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this replay. I will see you guys later.